Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. We find that our life is changing beyond recognition, and the modern world, the modern era, without internet is practically impossible to be comprehended. Internet especially has become a part of life, and it's changing since the day www came into existence. We have all contributed to the change as users, as creators, as sharers of the content, as consumers, as investors, and as voters. The recent grilling of the technical companies chiefs, Microsoft, Apple, Google, and Facebook by the House of Representatives shows how these organizations are standing up to and having their own agenda. At the same time, the executive is trying to control them. As a matter of fact, we all are responsible as entrepreneurs, business executives, lawmakers, regulators, journalists, activists, researchers, and thought leaders for this change. We are collectively responsible. While I fully agree there is much to be proud of, it's clear that anybody who follows the news today in the world is not going to be more free, more democratic, just, and prosperous simply because the internet connects billions of people. The recent cases in the Supreme Court of India regarding the availability of G4 and G3 as a fundamental right show that the people assume that the internet connects billions of people, that innovative new information technologies that continue to proliferate will bring handsome returns to the investors. Yes. But if you want a global information environment that supports human rights, accountable governance, social justice, and economic justice, then the information technologies, along with the institutions that influence and operate them, are not living up to the task. They have got to be operative in a manner that reflect and reinforces these values, and that's not happening. The structure wise and governance wise, they are failing. As a matter of fact, when I consider the dark side of the internet, the downsides of the internet, I'm more worried about what we are going to leave as a legacy. Are we not failing the next generation? Our own physical existence is now shaped by the complex information ecosystem. We depend on an array of software and hardware, media platforms, data storage, transmission systems to conduct most of our personal and professional lives. But are these information systems being built and managed in a manner that sustain a rights respecting society? No. And if I have to borrow the language of the environmentalist sustainability, are we creating and using information technologies and systems in a manner that meets our needs for the present without compromising in any way the future generations to meet their own needs? Are we working mindfully to ensure that in using and shaping technologies to address today's urgent needs, we are not compromising the ability of the future generations to enjoy political, economic, cultural, and social rights, regardless of ethnicity, creed, gender, and sexual exploitation? No. The answer would be no. A resounding no. No, no, no. As a matter of fact, online freedom has been a steady decline for the past 6 years. Let's be very clear. Facebook has its own police. Write a word against Islam and you might be banished. Write a word against the so called liberal thought and all your right to have freedom of expression would be a dream. And not only in the Facebook, we have seen in Twitter banning the American doctors and the physicians simply because they were advocating something which some doctors don't accept, hydrochloroquine. And it has been proved that it's correct, but I'm not here talking about that. I'm talking about the irresponsibility of the management of Twitter and Facebook. They have no business policing until it is such that it can inflame tension and violence. Difference of opinion, upholding certain values which are not to your liking is not bad. But we find dramatic growth in the number of countries that require private companies or internet users to restrict or delete web content dealing with political, religious, and social issues. This has clear impact on the people. At times we celebrate the new technologies that made it possible for the individuals to circumvent mainstream media gatekeepers and report to the world what was happening in their communities. Now it's more challenging, more risky, and sometimes simply dangerous to produce the kind of stories some people do. It's not only due to censorship, but also because our own line lives are continuously surveilled and monitored by social media. And who does it? By third party applications, advertisers, and the government agencies. Internet freedom in 2015 and onwards have shown that even the Western democracies, which used to take a pride in protecting freedom, have put in place measures that threaten freedom online. For example, in November last, UK Parliament passed Investigatory Powers Act, granting police and intelligence agencies sweeping surveillance powers in the Western world. The US based non-profit Internet Archive, a digital library, works to preserve a record of online content, but it is concerned that it may not be possible to back it up. As a matter of fact, billions of people have come to depend on digital products and services. But the multinational behemoths like Google, Facebook, Apple hold keep a growing sway on our civic life. And there's a network authoritarianism. Let's not deny. The citizens of USA or Western democracies, when they debate the impact of elections on fake news through social media, is not new. Manipulation of social media by the government and the political parties to spread disinformation and misinformation has been there almost since the day social media came into existence. You remember 2011 Global Voices contributors identified cases in Syria and Bahrain after Arab Spring and in Russia at the height of opposition protests. This was seen at that time. The authoritarian regimes adapt and thrive in the age of social media because they can manipulate them. But it doesn't resonate with the Western democracies. But the networking or networked authoritarianism is clearly spreading, and that's a dark side. So, what to do? Do we look to environmentalists for a solution? because at least we have a roadmap to see how companies, nations, and communities can not only operate and live sustainably, but can contribute to the development of sustainable technologies. So, do we need sustainable internet? Yes, that's what we need. And then that's why we will be able to leave a proper legacy for the coming generations. As a matter of fact, there is no denying the reality that the importance of the political and the public opinion in implementing climate change was responsible in a great extent to control the spread of pollution. So why cannot we control the spread of networked authoritarianism? That's quite possible. And as a matter of fact, fortunately, the tools have been built to help companies and government to improve environmental and networking sustainability. And then when I look at the world scenario, I find that a number of world's biggest internet and telecommunication companies, including Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Vodafone, have started carrying out human rights impact assessments that examines how their products and services are impacting the users' freedom of expression and privacy. And most of these companies are members of either the Global Network Initiative or Telecommunication Industry Dialogue. So the process has started. Unfortunately, the progress is so tardy that often a case of one step forward, two steps back, and the result is not a very happy one. Despite these voluntary efforts, despite the oversight by the government, the hold of executive on the internet companies is becoming harsher. And companies themselves do not adequately address a number of issues, particularly those relating to the consumer privacy and the way in which terms and conditions are decided and enforced. There is as yet no clarity or consensus among the experts how one would evaluate corporate responsibility in use of algorithms that shape our information, prioritize and highlight it to the users. Governments have failed miserably, and it has happened across the globe, across the board. They have failed to carry out any impact assessment information policy. And that's what's needed. While hate speech and spread of extreme content online are really valid issues, for example, the European Commission, which considers itself to be the guardian of freedom, has made no attempt whatsoever to assess the broader impact on the global information ecosystem in which censorship of political and peaceful religious speech is rampant. It's a new code of conduct that's required. It should compel internet companies to remove speech as soon as it's flagged as problematic. But that speech, which is really hateful and incites violence, not that speech which is just a difference of opinion. It needs a very fine and subtle nuance to differentiate between the two. And when impact assessments are done, they are generally confined to the jurisdiction where the policy is made, even if its impact can be global. No, internet is not something which you can confine within the parameters of a country or a nation. It is across the border. So such impact assessment studies should have a global backing. As a matter of fact, well, the UP government did undertake an impact assessment to how the investigatory powers that would impact citizens. It did not consider the impact on the global information system. So the point is what is to be done. And as I said, as investors, consumers, and voters, there's much we can do to push companies and governments to do a better job. And that is in respecting basic digital rights. The freedom of expression and privacy is my digital right. This needs to be written down and enforced by the governments. The struggle will never end. Let's be very clear. Just ask people who have spent their lives working on environment and social sustainability. Their work is not over. So we need a continuous watchdogs, an impact assessment model for evaluating information policy, both for the private and the public sector, can just be a foundation for addressing a complicated confusion layer. But that's not a fact. That's not all. As a matter of fact, even more complicating and confusing layer is information manipulation, demagoguery, propaganda, hidden as news, and media business plans without desperately reaching for the proper measures. What do we need? The world needs internet, but it needs an information ecosystem that respects and protects our human rights and most important digital rights. This is the job of this generation. And it's vital if we want the fourth industrial revolution to be successful, to take the world and humanity into more just, prosperous, healthy, and powerful direction. This is needed. Are the governments ready to do it? Are the companies willing to do it? Most important, are you willing to do it? Think about it this weekend and start acting. This is in your interest, in the interest of this generation and the interest of the coming generation. Our digital rights are as important as our fundamental rights. They cannot be negated, and we negate them, we ignore them at our peril. I hope we stop doing that. Thank you.